I was 68 when my daughter finally raised her voice at me. Not shouted, she doesn't shout. She sharpened it, made it thin and precise, like a blade you don't notice until it's already warm in your hand. The house smelled of burnt toast that morning. Not burnt enough to set off the smoke alarm. Just enough to remind you that something had been left unattended. I scraped the black edge with a butter knife and ate it anyway, standing at the counter in socks that no longer matched. The kettle clicked off by itself. The radio on the windowsill muttered about traffic on Route 9. Ordinary sounds. Anchors. My wife, Helen, used to say the kitchen tells you the truth about a man. Whether he eats standing up, whether he washes his cup right away or lets it soak until evening, whether he notices when the fridge light flickers. Helen's been gone 4 years and 8 months. Pancreatic cancer doesn't negotiate. It invoices. I still drink my coffee from her chipped blue mug. I know it's ridiculous. I also know that when it finally breaks, I will not replace it. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed on the table. Not a call, a text. We need to talk today. Important. That was from my daughter, Melissa. She lives 12 minutes away if traffic behaves. I hadn't been to her house in months. She prefers neutral ground now. Cafes with hard chairs and loud espresso machines. Places where conversations stay polite, because it's impolite not to. I rinsed the mug, wiped the counter twice, and sat down. The chair creaked the way it always has, a complaint learned over years. The envelope was already on the table. Thick, cream-colored. My name typed neatly, no return address. I didn't open it yet. I knew better than to read official paper before coffee number 2. The house itself was quiet in that expectant way old houses get, as if they're holding their breath. I paid $214,000 for it in 1999. 3 bedrooms. A yard just big enough to resent mowing. By the time Helen died, it was worth a little over $900,000 according to the cheerful man with the tablet who came by last spring. I thanked him and didn't tell him that I still think of it as a $214,000 house with good bones. At 10:30, Melissa arrived. She didn't knock. She never does anymore. She still has a key, though I've noticed she uses it like a declaration. She came in wearing a beige coat that cost more than my first car. Hair perfect, phone already in her hand, thumb hovering like she might need to escape at any second. "Dad," she said, as if greeting a colleague. "You look tired." "I am," I said. "Sit." She didn't. She placed her bag carefully on the chair, the one Helen used to claim. The envelope slid toward me as if nudged by an invisible hand. "We should do this sooner rather than later," she said. "Time matters." "For what?" She exhaled a practice sound. "For everyone." I opened the envelope. Deed transfer. Title. My address. My signature line, waiting patiently at the bottom. A neat paragraph about family continuity. Another about efficiency. The word estate appeared 3 times, like a nervous habit. "I'm not dead," I said. "No one said you were. You're planning like I am. That's responsible." I laughed then. It surprised both of us. A short sound. Dry. "You remember when you needed $48,000 for grad school?" I asked. "April 2006. I wired it on a Thursday because you said the deadline was Friday." Her jaw tightened. "That's not what this is about." "And the $72,000 for the down payment?" 2012. I remember because the bank clerk spelled your last name wrong." "Dad." "And the transfers after your divorce? The temporary ones, the airline tickets, the storage unit, the therapist you didn't like." She raised her hand, not aggressively, like a moderator. "We're not doing a history lesson." "We are," I said. "You just don't like the syllabus." She finally sat, crossed her legs, looked at the walls as if evaluating them. "Sign the deed or leave," she said, calmly. "That's the reality." The sentence hung there. No echo, no drama. Just furniture in the room now. "Leave where?" "That's not my problem." I nodded, slowly. My hands were steady. That surprised me too. "I'll need a lawyer," I said. She smiled then, the kind that means she had already accounted for that. "Of course," she said. "We'll do this properly." I folded the papers back into the envelope, placed it exactly where it had been. "Good," I said. "Then let's do it properly." Outside, a truck backfired. The radio switched to an ad. The fridge light flickered. The house, it seemed, exhaled, and somewhere in that quiet, something in me stopped being afraid. After Melissa left, I didn't sit down right away. I stood in the hallway where the floorboard dips slightly near the bathroom door. I fixed that board myself in 2003, cut the wood too thin, told Helen no one would notice. She noticed every day and never mentioned it again. I waited for the shaking to come. It didn't. Instead, there was this clean, unpleasant clarity, like cold water on the face. I made coffee, a fresh pot this time, darker than I usually drink it. I carried the mug into the small room I still call my office, though the only thing I've worked on there for years is remembering. 2 bookcases, 1 filing cabinet, a desk with a drawer that sticks unless you lift and pull at the same time. That drawer is where the papers live. I didn't organize them at first. I just took everything out and spread it on the desk, then the floor. Envelopes, bank statements, folded wire confirmations, printouts with dates highlighted in my own handwriting, receipts from airlines that no longer exist, contracts I'd signed without reading closely because the person asking me to sign had once learned to ride a bike on my driveway. The first transfer I found was, from March 3, 2004, $12,500. Memo line, tuition bridge. I remember that phone call. Melissa, crying in the campus parking lot. Rain so loud I could barely hear her. Then 2006, $48,000, just like I'd said. Wire fee, $35. I complained about the fee to the clerk. She'd smiled the way people do when they think you're being small. 2012, $72,000 down payment assistance. I'd sold my second car that year. Helen and I shared one for almost 18 months. She said it was romantic. It wasn't. It was practical. After Helen got sick, the number sped up. $8,400 airline tickets, first class because the layovers are too hard on you, Dad. $19,600, temporary help during Melissa's divorce. $3,200, storage unit, 6 months prepaid, never emptied. $11,000, legal fees, hers not mine. By the time I reached the present, my back hurt and the coffee was cold. I added it all up twice, then a third time, because I wanted the answer to change. It didn't. $387,400. That was the conservative number. That didn't include groceries, utilities when she forgot to pay them. The $900 refrigerator she took when hers broke because yours is newer. It didn't include the interest I'd lost moving money out of places it was quietly growing. Almost $400,000. I sat back against the bookcase and laughed again. Longer this time. A crack sound. The kind you hear in parking lots late at night. So this was the context of sign, the deed, or leave. Not cruelty. Accounting. At noon, my phone rang. Not Melissa. A number I hadn't saved. Mr. Carter? A man asked. Yes. This is Daniel Reeve. I'm representing your daughter regarding an estate restructuring. She mentioned you might have questions. Estate restructuring. Like we were rearranging furniture. I do, I said. How soon can you meet? A pause. Keyboard clicks. Tomorrow at 10. I'll bring my lawyer, I said. Another pause. Shorter. Of course. After the call, I went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Half a rotisserie chicken. Milk 1 day from expiration. Mustard with the cap cracked. Helen would have made soup from that chicken. She could make food from nothing and warmth from worse. I ate standing up again. Habit. In the afternoon, I drove to the bank. The old branch, not the glass one with coffee. The teller recognized me. She always does. I need statements, I said. Everything. She didn't ask why. She just nodded and printed. When I got home, there was a second envelope on the table. This one handwritten. Melissa's handwriting has always been neat, aggressive in its tidiness. Dad, this doesn't have to be ugly. We're trying to help you. Please don't complicate things. I put it under the kettle to keep it from curling. At 6, I called Andrew Holt. We'd gone to high school together. He became a lawyer because, in his words, someone has to translate nonsense into consequences. He listened without interrupting. That's why I called him. When I finished, he said, "Don't sign anything without me." I won't. And bring everything, especially the things you think don't matter. After the call, the house felt different again. Smaller, more honest. I went to bed early. Didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about the word leave. how easily it had come to her. In the morning, I shaved carefully, put on the good jacket, the one Helen liked because it made me look like I had somewhere important to be. I did. At 10 sharp the next day, Melissa was already there, confident, prepared. The lawyer smiled the smile of a man billing by the hour. Andrew sat beside me. He placed his folder on the table gently, like a gift. Melissa glanced at it, then at me. "You really brought him," she said. "Yes," I said. "I really did." For the first time since Helen died, I felt the balance in the room shift. Not in my favor yet, but away from inevitability. And that, it turned out, was enough to begin. The conference room smelled like lemon disinfectant and new carpet. No windows. A long table with a surface so polished it reflected our faces back at us, slightly distorted, like a warning. Melissa sat opposite me. Perfect posture, neutral blouse, a pen already in her hand, uncapped. She had always liked to be ready for the final step. To her right was Daniel Reeve, estate attorney, mid-40s, precise haircut, eyes trained to land on signatures the way hawks land on field mice. His briefcase lay open beside him like a toolbox. Andrew sat next to me. No pen out, hands folded, calm. He'd worn the same gray suit he'd worn to his wife's funeral. I took that as a sign of seriousness. "Thank you for coming," Reeve began. "The goal today is straightforward. We're here to formalize a transfer that reflects what everyone agrees is inevitable." "I don't agree," I said. Reeve smiled professionally. "Of course, I meant inevitable in a legal sense." Andrew tilted his head. "Nothing is inevitable until it's executed." Melissa's eyes flicked to him, annoyance brief but unfiltered. "Dad," she said, lowering her voice, "we've been over this." "We have," I said, "but not together." Reeve slid a document across the table toward me. Heavy paper. My name printed cleanly at the top. Address underneath. The house. My house. "Fee simple transfer," he said. "Immediate effect. Retained right of occupancy for 12 months. Plenty of time to transition." Transition. Like dying politely. "And after 12 months? Andrew asked. Reeve didn't look at him. "That would depend on circumstances." Andrew nodded once. Made a note. Melissa leaned forward. "This protects everyone. You don't need to worry about maintenance, taxes, any of it." "I've paid those for 25 years, I said. "And now you don't have to," she replied. "That's the point." Reeve cleared his throat. "If we could focus." Andrew opened his folder. The sound was small, but it changed the room. "Before anyone signs anything," Andrew said, "we need to acknowledge prior financial transfers." Melissa frowned. "That's irrelevant." "It isn't," Andrew said. "Not when undue influence is in question." Reeve stiffened. "We're not alleging." "No," Andrew agreed. "We're documenting." He slid a stack of papers across the table. Not neatly, not ceremonially, just enough force to make them land with a soft thud. Bank statements, wire confirmations, dates, totals circled in blue ink. Melissa stared at them. "What is this?" she asked. "My money," I said. Reeve picked up the top sheet. His eyes moved quickly, faster than Melissa's. He stopped smiling. "These transfers," Andrew said, "span 19 years. Nearly $400,000. No formal repayment terms. No lien. No gift letters." "They were gifts," Melissa said sharply. "Family help." Andrew nodded. "Sometimes. Other times they were loans. Other times they were made under emotional pressure. Which matters?" Reeve set the paper down carefully. "Mr. Carter, is it your position that these funds—" "My position," I said, "is that you don't get to erase history with a pen." Silence settled, the kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. Melissa looked at me then, really looked, not at a father, at an obstacle. "You're doing this to hurt me," she said. "No," I said. "I'm doing this because you already did." Reeve leaned back, recalculated. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "perhaps we should postpone until emotions cool." Andrew smiled, just a little. "Or," he said, "we can proceed with an amended document." He placed a new set of papers on the table. Thinner, cleaner. Melissa's head snapped toward him. "What is that?" "A life estate," Andrew said, "with irrevocable residency rights, plus a recorded lien equal to documented transfers, adjusted for inflation." Enforceable. Reeves' jaw tightened. He read faster now. That's not what we discussed, Melissa said. I didn't discuss anything, I said. I listened. Her pen hovered uselessly over the table. Reeve looked up. This fundamentally changes the structure. Yes, Andrew said. It reflects reality. The room felt smaller, warmer. Reeve closed his briefcase halfway, then stopped, opened it again. If this goes contested, he said, it becomes complicated. Andrew shrugged. It already is. Melissa pushed her chair back abruptly. The legs scraped. Loud. Public. You planned this, she said to me. Yes, I said, after you told me to leave. Her face flushed. For the first time, something like fear slipped through. Reeve folded his hands. We'll need time to review. Take it, Andrew said. We're in no rush. Melissa stood. This isn't over. I met her eyes. Calm. Steady. No, I said, but it's not finished the way you thought. As they left Reeve last, he gave Andrew a look, not hostile, respectful, cautious. When the door closed, the room felt suddenly enormous. Andrew gathered his papers. You did well. I exhaled. My hands finally trembled. I signed nothing, I said. Andrew smiled. Exactly. Outside, the sky was painfully blue. I stood there for a moment, letting the sun hit my face. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't being moved. I was standing. The thing about power is that it doesn't announce when it changes hands. It doesn't slam doors or raise its voice. It simply stops asking permission. After the meeting, Andrew and I stood on the sidewalk for a moment without speaking. People walked past us carrying coffee, phones pressed to their ears, lives intact and unquestioned. I watched a woman struggle to open a car door with one hand while balancing a toddler on her hip. No one was trying to take her house. You all right? Andrew asked. I think so, I said. I feel lighter. That's adrenaline, he said. It fades. Good, I said. I don't want to feel brave forever. Just long enough. He told me what would happen next. Letters. Delays. Counteroffers framed as compromises. Pressure disguised as concern. He said Melissa's lawyer would try to scare me with timelines and costs, with words like prudence and family harmony. They'll want you tired, he said. People sign bad things when they're tired. I've been tired for years, I said. This is different. At home, the answering machine light was blinking. Yes, I still have one. Melissa hates it, says it makes me sound older than I am. There were 3 messages. The first was Melissa. Controlled. Dad, we need to reset. Call me. The second was her husband, Brian. We've never been close. His voice has always sounded like he's explaining something simple to someone slow. This doesn't have to get ugly, he said. You're overreacting. The third message was from a number I didn't recognize. No name, just breathing for a moment, then a hang-up. I imagined Reeve, phone in hand, deciding against whatever he'd been about to say. I didn't return any of them. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I walked through the house, slowly, not remembering, inventorying. The roof I replaced in 2011, paid in cash. The furnace from 2016, still under warranty. The fence Melissa leaned against during her rebellious phase, arms crossed, eyes daring me to say something. I opened drawers, closets, the small safe in the bedroom that Helen insisted on buying after a neighbor's break-in. Inside it were our passports, her wedding ring, and a folded piece of paper I hadn't looked at in a long time. Her handwriting. If you're reading this, you're probably being too generous again. I sat on the bed and held the note like it might warm me. The next week unfolded exactly as Andrew predicted. First came the email, polite, clarifying positions. Then the revised proposal, softer language, extended occupancy, a modest acknowledgement of prior support, $50,000, presented as magnanimous. Then the call from Melissa. Not angry now, hurt. I don't recognize you, she said. That makes 2 of us, I replied. She cried then, or at least made crying sounds. I let her finish. You taught me to be responsible, she said. Now you're punishing me for it. No, I said. I taught you consequences. You're just meeting them late. The pressure didn't stop. It adapted. Brian showed up unannounced one afternoon, stood on the porch like a man delivering bad news. You can't win this, he said. I don't need to, I replied. I just need not to lose. He scoffed. You think a lien and a life estate make you safe? They make me present, I said. Which seems to bother you. He left without another word. 2 days later, Andrew called. They're backing down, he said. Not all the way, but enough. What changed? They ran the numbers, and they realized something. What? That you're no longer predictable. I smiled at that. Predictability had been my greatest weakness. A man who always pays, always helps, always yields. A man easy to move. The final document arrived on a Thursday. Couriered. Heavy again, but different weight this time. Life estate. Irrevocable. Lien, recorded in forcible accruing interest. No for sale. No time limit. No transition. I signed it the next morning. Andrew watched. Didn't rush me. Didn't look away. When the pen lifted, there was no thunder. No vindication speech. Just ink drying quietly on paper. Melissa didn't call after that. Weeks passed. The house stayed mine. The air settled. I slept better than I had in years. One afternoon, while fixing the loose hinge on the back door, I realized something else had changed too. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for approval. Not for forgiveness. Not for permission to remain. I was home, and this time it was by choice. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The registry letter arrived on a Monday. White envelope. State seal. No drama in the font. Just confirmation. The lien was recorded. The life estate was registered. Permanent, irrevocable, unambiguous. In the language of clerks and statutes, I existed. I placed the letter in the filing cabinet, behind the tax records, and in front of Helen's medical bills. Not because it belonged there emotionally, but because that's where truths live, between what you paid and what you lost. Melissa didn't come by anymore. At first, that absence felt sharp, like pressing on a bruise you keep forgetting is there. Then it dulled. Then it became background noise, like the refrigerator hum or the ticking clock in the hall. Something you only notice when it stops. 3 weeks after the document was filed, Brian tried one last move. It wasn't personal. That was the point. I got a notice from the city about a potential zoning concern. Anonymous complaint. Overgrown hedge. Unsafe walkway. I laughed when I read it. The hedge had been there since before Melissa learned to spell her name. The inspector came on a Wednesday. Young man. Polite. Clipboard. Looks fine to me, he said after 10 minutes. Someone's being creative. Yes, I said. They are. That was the end of it. The real ending came quietly. One afternoon in early October, I was replacing the batteries in the smoke detector when my phone rang. Melissa's name appeared. No photo, just text. I let it ring twice longer than necessary. Dad, she said. No sharpness this time. Just tired. Yes. We need to talk. We've done a lot of that. A pause. I could hear traffic. A blinker ticking. Her life continuing. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she said. Do what? Stand your ground. I considered correcting her, telling her this wasn't about ground. It was about gravity. But I didn't. I didn't think you'd ask me to leave, I said instead. Silence again. Longer. They told me you'd cave, she said finally. That you always do. Who's they? Another pause. Answer enough. I don't know how to fix this, she said. That makes sense, I replied. You didn't break it by accident. She inhaled sharply. I loved you. I believe you, I said. I just don't believe it was enough. She didn't argue. When the call ended, I sat on the front steps for a long time. The sun was low. The air smelled like leaves and distant rain. The house behind me felt solid in a way it never had before, not because it was safe, but because it was honest. That night, I made soup from the rotisserie chicken. Added carrots, onions, too much pepper. Helen would have complained. I ate at the table, sat down, used a bowl she liked. I thought about everything I'd lost. The easy version of my daughter, the illusion of gratitude, the comfort of being needed. I also thought about what I kept. My name, my address, my right to say no without apologizing. The next morning, I woke early and opened all the windows. Let the house breathe. Let myself breathe. There was no victory parade, no apology letter, no sudden repentance, just something better. Silence without fear, ownership without permission, a future that didn't require my disappearance. I washed the blue mug carefully and placed it upside down to dry. The house didn't belong to my daughter. It never had, and now finally neither did I. Winter came early that year, the kind that doesn't announce itself with snow, just a colder light and mornings that smell like iron. I noticed it first in my hands. They ached when I twisted the radiator valve. They hesitated before keys. I like that. Pain at my age is proof of continuity. Melissa sent a Christmas card. No note, just a photograph of her, Brian, and a tree too tall for the room it was in. I recognized the smile, the public one. I placed the card on the mantel for a week, then slid it into the drawer with old manuals and expired warranties. A record, not a shrine. On December 23rd, Andrew stopped by with a bottle of something decent and the look of a man who enjoys endings that don't make headlines. They're selling their place, he said casually, like discussing weather. Downsizing? I asked. Upgrading their expectations, he replied. The lien made refinancing unpleasant. I nodded, stirred the soup. Same recipe as before. Still too much pepper. Anything else? I asked. They asked if you'd release part of it. I smiled into the steam. And I said no, Andrew said. On your behalf. Good, I said. I would have charged interest for the conversation. He laughed. We drank. He left before dark. That night, I sat alone in the living room with only the lamp on, the one Helen hated because it made shadows too sharp. I liked it now. Sharp edges show where things begin and end. I thought about the day Melissa told me to sign or leave. How certain she'd been. How small she'd made me feel with one sentence. How easily certainty had mistaken itself for authority. I walked through the house one last time, not to check, not to remember, but to acknowledge. The wall where height was marked in pencil. The doorframe repaired twice. The chair that still creaks, unapologetic. I turned off the lights room by room, not because I had to, because I wanted to. Before bed, I stood at the window and looked out at the yard. Frost on the grass. The hedge still standing. Defiant, apparently. I realized then what the real gift had been. Not the house. Not the money. Not even the justice, such as it was. It was the moment my daughter said leave. And I didn't. I stayed. I signed nothing away. I chose myself without asking anyone if that was acceptable. At 68, I learned something men are supposed to learn earlier, but rarely do. Love that demands your erasure is not love. Help that assumes your silence is not help. And a home is not something you give away to keep peace. It's something you stand in. I turned off the last light. The house held.